For more than a century, the logic of the corporate balance sheet was simple. On one side, you had your physical assets, factories, machines, capital. On the other, you had your human assets, workers, engineers, managers. And for the most part, these two sides of the ledger grew together. You built a new factory, you hired more people to run it. The two were allies in the grand project of growth. But what happens when the logic of that balance sheet fundamentally breaks? What happens when a company looks at those two columns and decides they are no longer allies, but adversaries in a zero-sum game for survival? This week, we saw one of the titans of the 20th century economy make a decision of precisely that magnitude. A decision to liquidate a massive portion of its human capital to fund a desperate, high-stakes bet on digital capital. It's a move that goes far beyond a simple layoff. It's a structural reset. A declaration that, in the age of AI, the most efficient way to grow is to shrink your workforce. This is the story of the Great Reallocation. Welcome back to AI Replaced Me. It's July 26th, 2025. I'm your host, Koby Ofek, and this is episode 12. This week, we witnessed more than just another tech layoff headline. We saw a foundational crack open in the industrial core of the tech economy. Intel, for decades, a symbol of American manufacturing might, is making a desperate, brutal pivot that provides the starkest example yet of the direct trade-off between human jobs and AI infrastructure. Let's start with the shocking numbers. On July 24th, Intel's new CEO, Lip Bhutan, a seasoned venture capitalist and turnaround expert brought in to right a listing ship, unveiled his plan for the company's survival. It's nothing short of a bloodletting. The company will shrink its workforce from roughly 96,000 people to about 75,000 by the end of this year. That's a 22% reduction, more than 21,000 jobs gone. To put that in perspective, no U.S. chipmaker has ever shed a fifth of its staff in a single calendar year. It dwarfs the recent headline-grabbing cuts at Microsoft. Make no mistake, this isn't a distant forecast. The gears are already turning. The company confirmed that 15% of those cuts are already done, and they've booked a $1.9 billion restructuring charge in their second quarter earnings to prove it. The cuts are deep and they are wide, targeting middle-layer engineering, duplicative AI tooling teams, and up to 20% of the staff in its Foundry division. In a move that signals a radical flattening of the organization, Tan revealed that 50% of all management layers have already been eliminated. So why this brutal historic downsizing? In a word, survival. Tan's message to employees was blunt: no more blank checks. For years, Intel has been losing a slow, painful war against rivals like NVIDIA and AMD, who have come to dominate the incredibly lucrative market for AI silicon. This move is a desperate, high-stakes gamble to catch up. The savings from these layoffs, estimated at around $10 billion over 2 years, are explicitly earmarked for funding an AI-first turnaround. This money is being funneled directly into research and development for their Gaudi line of AI accelerators and for building out the massive data center capacity needed to power the AI revolution. And here we see the cycle in its purest, most brutal form. Intel is firing tens of thousands of people to save money. That money is then used to build the very AI hardware and infrastructure that enables other companies to become more efficient, which often means reducing their need for human workers. The money saved from Intel's human payroll is directly financing the technology designed to shrink human payrolls across the entire economy. It is a closed, self-perpetuating, and rapidly accelerating loop of displacement. Intel is liquidating its human capital to fund the creation of digital capital. This is the great reallocation. The fallout from this decision extends far beyond Intel's campus. The plan involves abandoning or dramatically slowing down multi-billion-dollar factory projects, or fabs, in Ohio, Germany, and Poland. Tan was scathing about the company's past strategy, calling investments in new factories unwise and excessive, and vowing that Intel will now only build to meet confirmed customer demand. At the same time, they are consolidating advanced packaging operations out of Costa Rica and into their larger sites in Vietnam and Malaysia, shifting even more of the supply chain eastward. This move single-handedly undermines a cornerstone of American and European industrial policy. Washington passed the CHIPS Act, granting billions in subsidies to companies like Intel, with the explicit goal of onshoring advanced semiconductor manufacturing. And what does Intel do? It lays off thousands of American workers and cancels the very mega fab in Ohio that was supposed to be a crown jewel of this national strategy. The result is that the West is now even more dependent on Asian giants like TSMC and Samsung for the next generation of AI chips. It also reveals the immense pressure AI competition is placing on corporate strategy. Government incentives, it turns out, are no match for the existential fear of being left behind by NVIDIA. The ripple effects will be felt for years, threatening tens of thousands of indirect jobs: construction workers, regional suppliers, high-tech toolmakers. It shows how an AI-driven pivot at a single company can destabilize an entire industrial ecosystem, giving organized labor and concerned lawmakers a potent new argument for AI displacement safeguards, especially as they debate President Trump's recently unveiled and largely deregulatory AI action plan. If Intel represents the loud, explosive shock of AI displacement, the earthquake, then ServiceNow represents the quiet, creeping crisis. It's the story of jobs that are never posted, opportunities that vanish before they ever exist, and how AI is enabling corporations to achieve growth without people. It's the tectonic drift. On July 24th, the automation software giant ServiceNow made a remarkable announcement during its quarterly earnings call. The company expects to save $100 million this year. The crucial detail is how the savings come from a calculated strategic reduction in planned new hires. The company is deploying its own AI tools internally to absorb the work that in previous years would have required hiring more staff. You might assume ServiceNow is a company in crisis to make such a move, but the reality is quite the opposite. It exceeded earnings expectations and offered a rosy forecast for the future, explicitly tying its financial health to this strategy of headcount avoidance. The $100 million figure isn't an abstract guess. It's a concrete number derived from a downward revision of their 2025 hiring plan. The strategy unfolding at ServiceNow should not be viewed as an outlier. It's rapidly becoming the new corporate playbook. Look at Salesforce. CEO Mark Benioff has been very open about their strategy. He recently stated that because of productivity gains from internal AI, the company has paused hiring for software engineers and customer service staff. But at the very same time, Salesforce is aggressively accelerating hiring in its sales division. Why? To sell its new suite of AI products to other companies. Together, these stories reveal a profound shift in corporate strategy. We are entering a more mature phase of AI adoption. The first wave was about using AI to build new products for customers. The second wave is about turning AI inward, using it as a lever for operational efficiency. The ultimate goal is to decouple revenue growth from headcount growth, to grow the bottom line without growing the payroll. I call this The workforce remix. You suppress hiring in operational and technical roles that can be automated, while you simultaneously boost hiring in roles that sell the automation itself. And the most insidious part of this strategy is what we can call invisible displacement. A layoff is a visible, countable event. It makes headlines. But a job that was budgeted for, that a recent graduate might have gotten, that simply never gets posted, that's a ghost. It's a silent shrinking of opportunity, and ServiceNow just put a price tag on it, $100 million. This is the quiet revolution that poses a profound threat to white-collar work, not necessarily from mass firings, but from a slow, steady erosion of new opportunities. As corporations reallocate capital from people to machines, and as AI's insatiable appetite for data grows, a powerful human counter-narrative is emerging. Forget the simplistic image of Luddites smashing looms. The human response taking shape today is a sophisticated, multi-front effort to establish rules, assert ownership, and most importantly, put a price on the very things AI needs to function: our work, our data, and our digital identity. Let's start on the creative front. On July 22nd, after a grueling strike that lasted nearly a year, the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, announced the ratification of its new contract with major video game companies. The core of the conflict went far beyond wages, striking at the existential question of who owns your digital self. The resulting agreement doesn't seek to ban AI. Instead, it cleverly builds a cage of economic and legal guardrails around it, founded on two pillars: consent and compensation. The contract mandates explicit, informed consent from a performer before a company can create or use their digital replica, their AI-generated voice or likeness. It then establishes clear compensation structures for any and all uses of those AI assets. This brilliantly reframes the entire issue. It takes a performer's identity, which AI developers saw as a free resource to be scraped and exploited, and turns it into a valuable, licensable asset. This is a masterclass in fighting automation with economics. The union understood that the appeal of AI voices and actors was primarily to cut costs. So, rather than trying to outlaw the technology, they made sure that cost-cutting measure had an actual cost. By forcing companies to pay a license fee for the source material, the human performance, the union fundamentally altered the business case. Using an AI replica is no longer a simple replacement. It's a build versus buy decision where buy, meaning hiring a human, remains economically competitive. It's a powerful blueprint for every other creative field facing the same threat. While actors were fighting to put a price on their identity, lawmakers were taking aim at the very source code of AI's intelligence. On July 24th, in a rare show of unity, Senators Josh Hawley, a Republican from Missouri, and Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut, introduced a bipartisan bill called the AI Accountability and Personal Data Protection Act. The bill's focus is laser-sharp. It seeks to prevent AI companies from training their models on pirated personal data and copyrighted works without the owner's consent. For years, the entire business model of many generative AI companies has rested on a legal gray area, a claim of fair use for scraping the entirety of the public internet. This bill aims to turn that gray area into a black and white prohibition. Crucially, it would grant individuals a private right of action, allowing them to sue companies for the unauthorized use of their data in AI training, adding a massive layer of legal and financial risk for developers. This is a profound strategic shift. It moves the battleground away from the consequences of AI like job loss and attacks the legitimacy of its creation. It poses an existential threat to some AI companies by targeting their most critical supply chain, their data. If this bill becomes law, it would force a radical, costly overhaul of how AI models are built. And it reframes the entire narrative. The complaint is no longer just AI replaced me. It's AI replaced me using stolen parts. The fact that this is a bipartisan effort shows just how politically potent this issue has become. All right, let's look at the horizon with a few quick flashes from the front lines.
Oh my goodness! Time for future forward flashes!
Flash 1. The VA's silent gamble. The Department of Veterans Affairs is on track to cut its workforce by 30,000 by the end of September. While the VA officially cites budget needs and attrition, not AI, the cuts include over 1,000 probationary researchers in critical fields like mental health, cancer, and prosthetics. This is a massive divestment in human expertise in the very areas where AI holds the most promise for future breakthroughs. It's a high-stakes gamble. Is the VA clearing the decks to make way for future AI systems, or is it creating a dangerous capabilities gap by shedding the very human experts needed to ethically and effectively guide that technology? Flash 2. The graduate gender gap reversal. We're seeing a stunning and unexpected reversal in the U.S. graduate job market. The unemployment rate for young male graduates has surged to 7%, completely erasing their historical advantage over their non-graduate peers. Meanwhile, young female graduates have maintained their employment stability. The reason? A massive hiring surge in healthcare, a sector that has absorbed nearly 50,000 young female graduates and remains, for now, highly resistant to automation. It's a powerful reminder that while AI is a disruptive force, powerful, sector-specific demand can temporarily override it, creating unexpected and deeply gendered outcomes in the labor market. Flash 3. The ILO's reality check. The International Labor Organization's latest update on AI and jobs offers a much-needed dose of nuanced reality. Using a more refined methodology, their model shows the global mean automation score for jobs has actually dipped slightly from 0.30 in 2023 to 0.29 in 2025. The takeaway here isn't that AI is hitting a wall, but that our collective understanding of its true capabilities and limitations is finally catching up to the hype. As the initial excitement gives way to the messy reality of implementation, we're getting a clearer picture of the complex, context-dependent tasks that remain stubbornly human, forcing a welcome recalibration of the most extreme doomsday forecasts. Flash 4. The Intel tea leaves. Intel's massive AI-first bet is far from a sure thing, and there are 3 signals to watch. First, their Q3 earnings report in late October. They absolutely must show concrete customer commitments for their next-generation 14A chips. Failure could trigger an even deeper wave of layoffs. Second, watch the CHIPS Act disbursements. Delays or clawbacks from Washington could be a sign of political fallout from their retreat on U.S. manufacturing. And third, monitor hiring at NVIDIA and AMD. If they start snapping up the thousands of engineers Intel just laid off, the competitive gap in AI silicon could widen into an unbridgeable chasm. We started today with the corporate balance sheet. For a century, human and machine capital were allies in growth. This week, we saw them become adversaries. Intel's great reallocation wasn't just a layoff. It was a multi-billion-dollar trade, swapping tens of thousands of people and the factories they would have worked in for a future built on AI silicon. ServiceNow and Salesforce showed us the quieter side of this trade, the invisible displacement of jobs that will never be created, all to make the balance sheet leaner. This sets up the fundamental conflict of our era. As corporations find it more profitable to invest in machines than in people, the human response, as we saw from the actors and the lawmakers this week, is not to try and stop progress. It's to change the pricing. It's to argue forcefully that our data, our creativity, and our very identities are not free resources for the taking. They are assets with value, and they demand consent and compensation. The question for all of us is no longer just how to adapt to AI, but how to assert our value in an economy that is actively trying to write us off the balance sheet. It's about recognizing that our most unique human qualities, our judgment, our creativity, our empathy, are now our most valuable economic assets. That's the proactive framework we all need to build. And it's the core idea I explore in my book, Keep Your Day Job: How to AI-Proof Your Career. It's available on Amazon and wherever you get your books. Join me next week on AI Replaced Me as we continue to track the signals in this ever-changing landscape. Thanks for tuning in.